What is up, my dudes, and the one girl who wishes she had a healthy, supportive, loving relationship like Harley Quinn and the Joker have? This is Bikes, Beards, and Brews. Let's kick that intro. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Videos Wednesdays and Fridays, you know, that's how we roll. Sometimes Mondays, it depends on what mood I'm in. The mood I'm usually in is no videos on Monday, but they happen. Anyway, today we are heading out to Danvers, Mass. Why are we going there? Well, we are going to go check out the inspiration for Arkham Asylum in the Batman comics, movies, TV shows, video games, board games, everything Batman related that has ever referenced Arkham Asylum. That's what we're going to check out. So a lot of you may not realize that this was a real place. This really existed. This isn't just something where, you know, a couple of the writers thought up something really cool and they were like, oh, this will be totally like badass if we did this. This was based upon a real hospital that got really out of control really quick. So we'll chat about that a little bit more when we get closer. So here's the thing about this place originally. It was called the Danvers Hospital. It took on other names over time. It was like the Danvers Mental Asylum and stuff like that. People obviously gave it nicknames like the mental ward, the crazy bin, you know, whatever. Stuff that not so polite, let's just say. But it was the Danvers Hospital. We're actually going to see part of it now. The thing about it is, it used to be much bigger. So this large brick building we're gonna go by right now is all that's left of the Danvers Hospital. It used to be much larger. I'll actually throw up a picture. So the way it was designed, it had a bat wing setup, or a bat setup, I should say. And the whole theory behind that was, so everything came back to this one center building here. Everything had to go through here, like coming and going. So that in itself was pretty fascinating. Yeah, we're gonna try and find a place to park where we don't get light towed, and we'll talk about this. So I don't want to go too far from my bike because I am in like future resident parking, and well, I don't see myself being a resident anytime soon. So the building behind me that you see is part of the original hospital. It's the last standing part of the hospital. How do we get from Danvers Hospital to Arkham Asylum? Well, this hospital was actually the basis for H.P. Lovecraft, who had a couple stories where he mentioned Arkham. That was the name he gave to his building that was inspired by this building. Then DC Comics kind of latched onto that and they turned it into Arkham Asylum, which is, bam, also this building. So there we go. Kind of a long, dark story that I want to talk to you about on this. So originally when this building was constructed, the whole point behind it was to have mental patients here, have no more than 500, where the theory was a lot of light, a lot of natural landscape, and a lot of nature could really help mental patients with their mental well-being and get them back into society, help to cure them and get them back into society. And that worked. This was actually built in the 1800s. They had a lot of success with this. A lot of patients came in, a lot of patients came out. But with anything else that's successful, its success kind of led to its doom. Over time,
they started to become much more burdened with many more patients than they could handle. Like I said, they were trying to stay within the 500 range, and they usually kept around 400. Towards the end, they were actually well over 2,000. During that 2,000, they kept asking the state for more funding so they could have more buildings and more staff, and they were constantly denied. So they had the same staff in the same space for 2,000 people that was designed for 500 people. It didn't go over so well, and it really caused a lot of problems. So what were some of those problems? Well, I mean, quite honestly, the stuff you would expect. Patients were no longer getting the care that they needed, and they were getting neglected. A lot of them were just left in straitjackets and forgotten about. You would often see patients just kind of roaming through the hallways unattended. Nobody knew what was going on with them. Stuff like that. It was pretty dark, and this is how the hospital goes from this really nice sort of place where you're like, okay, how did this get to Arkham Asylum, to going, oh, that's how it gets to Arkham Asylum. As time roamed on, they tried to figure out ways where they could take care of their patients with the staff that they had. And this hospital is actually kind of known for being like the birthplace of the prefrontal lobe lobotomy. Yeah, think about that one. And they used that thinking that they could help control patients by doing that. So they started lobotomizing patients, and that got real messy real quick, because then you had what was almost zombies roaming around the hallways in, like restraints, straitjackets, stuff like that, and just staring at a wall, not really comprehending stuff, not knowing what was going on. And this place became much, much darker. Around the late 80s, early 90s is when this hospital was fully shut down. And then from there, it went into disrepair. Nobody really took care of it. It started falling apart. It was just structurally a mess. In 2001, a movie called Session 9 was filmed here. It's supposed to be kind of a horror movie. I've checked it out. It's pretty fun. Well, fun. But even with them, you can check out that movie today. You can still find it. When they did that movie, they were relegated to only certain places in the building because the floors and the ceilings had become so dangerously unstable. It just wasn't safe. So when they did the movie, they really didn't have to do any sort of like changes. They just kind of came in, set up, did some lighting, and there it was. So if you want an idea of what this place looked like towards the end, check out Session 9. Around the 2000s, after that, they decided to demo a lot of the building because it was truly falling apart. When they started doing that, they also turned it into the condos that it is today, which is why there's a leasing section. That in itself, to me, is really creepy. The reason for that is because you could be in an apartment where, like, you're standing in a place where people will like lobotomized, and yeah, that's very, very disturbing to me. Let me say that. So this is a memorial that they have set up for the previous Denver State Hospital. Actually, you can see right here in the map, this is where we were. We were in the front. And then the original buildings came out, as I was saying, kind of like a bat wing. Well, each side was, a bat wing. You can pause if you want to read that. And that comes around over here. To the institution. The people. So the biggest problem with this memorial is it really is with rose tinted glasses. Like, they're looking at the best parts of it, and I can understand that, especially where, you know, they have the apartments going and all that stuff. You don't want to be like, oh man, this used to be a horror show, rent this premium apartment, you'll love it. That would be kind of frightening. But yeah, so patients were treated very, very poorly as they swelled in numbers. When the hospital first started, like I said, it was really with the best intentions. They kept under 500, with their max being 500. They tried to get them lots of light, lots of nature, lots of landscaping. I mean, the scenery around here is fantastic. And when you look at some of the old pictures on some of the old grounds and whatnot, they really did do some wonderful things here. It was when it just started getting out of control that it became a problem. One of those big problems is they really stopped treating the patients like people. We're gonna try and find the graveyard that's here, that's actually just for the patients. I'm trying to find the old patient cemetery. I think I'm on the right path. I'm not entirely sure, but at least the creepiness factor is here as we head down there. All right, so I did overshoot it a little bit when I went into the cornfield, but I did find it. It is here. There are 770 markers total for different patients. Not all of them here, but the largest majority are. So a lot of them receive markers like this. Like, this would be patient number 60 that had died here and was buried here. There are some real names as well. Same thing, patient number 59. Let's go see if like number 1 was ever marked. So Frank Lawrence, 1826 to 1878, is marked as patient number 1. We're down in the furthest corner of the top of the cemetery right now. One of the things I was really worried about, that I really wondered about, because it seems like this is kind of like a dark mark on Danvers history, was if they take care of these at all. And they do. They do a really good job taking care of the land here. It looks really nice. It's very respectful, and that part is excellent. So we do have this memorial constructed, and there's a lot of names on there. I started counting this one. There's about 53 in the first row, so we've got 106 there. Easily another 100 or so there. So we're close to about 300 patients. So as I mentioned, as time went on, like, a lot of the patients, they weren't even given names. So here's 238, and there's no plaque. I mean, that's just 238 was buried here. So that's the cemetery. A lot of rumors circulated around, but of course during that time a lot of that stuff was kind of swept under the rug. So to find like actual documentation on it, you're probably not going to. But the rumors were there was a lot of experimenting and a lot of testing on a lot of these patients. A lot of times because they weren't claimed by their family, so there was no one to advocate for them. And because the hospital was so overpopulated, they could kind of get away with it. These people just kind of fell in the cracks of the system and were forgotten about. So because of these stories of just torture, the lobotomies, the neglect, H.P. Lovecraft kind of latched onto that, worked into his occult and horror series. Then DC Comics, looking for a dark, twisted sort of place where they could put all their criminals, latched onto that. So by less than 6 degrees of separation, Arkham Asylum is Danvers Hospital.
Let's get one last look at Arkham Asylum before we roll away. Whew. that was a heavy one. It's, you know, you kind of want to have fun with all the videos, and like I don't like to go too serious on my videos. I like to have fun with them. But this is a good piece of history that I really think is worth talking about. And it's really fun to kind of, well, not fun, but really interesting how it ties to pop culture that is alive and relevant today, and things that you may not even think about in your everyday life. Like, I'm sure a fairly large portion of my channel are fans of like Batman and have seen like a Batman like movie or comic book or TV show or played the video games. All that stuff has Arkham Asylum in it. And it wasn't just something that they plucked out of the air. It wasn't just something they made up on the fly. There were reasons to it that they pulled back to. Again, like, you know, they leaned into the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, and H.P. Lovecraft leaned into the history of Danvers Hospital. So this really is like the progenitor of two pretty big, like, cultural, like, I'd say icons, for lack of a better word, currently. And it's really interesting, at least to me, and I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I hope you learned a little bit. So guys, as we wrap this video up, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, share this with friends, share it with family, share it with that super nerdy Batman friend that you've got. They love this stuff, trust me. And I'll see you all on the flip side.